Imagine a future where your smart device could just, you know, instantly tell you the carb count of your dinner plate.
Yeah, helping you manage something like diabetes with real confidence.
It's a truly game-changing prospect, isn't it?
Totally.
But the real question is, how close are we really to making that vision a safe reality?
That's precisely what we're diving into today.
Yeah.
We're exploring an experiment.
Right.
It tested how well prominent AI models perform when asked to estimate carbohydrates.
And even suggest insulin doses.
Exactly. And based purely on food images.
Okay, so our mission today is to unpack the fascinating and maybe sometimes frustrating results of this carb counting showdown.
Yeah, and pull out the most important insights for you, the listener.
Whether you're living with diabetes, you're a caregiver, or maybe you're just curious about this cutting-edge AI stuff in health.
Now, before we jump into the model's performance, there's kind of a crucial point right off the bat.
Oh, what's that?
DeepSeek, which is a really powerful language model, actually couldn't participate in this challenge.
Oh, really? Why not? You'd think a powerful AI could handle something like looking at a picture.
Surprising, isn't it?
Yeah.
Despite its, language capabilities,
Yeah.
DeepSeek currently lacks image analysis. It just couldn't see the food pictures.
Ah, okay. And that was central to the test.
Absolutely. It's a really important reminder that not all powerful AIs are built for visual tasks.
Good point. Something to keep in mind if you're thinking about AI for carb counting.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's unpack this. First scenario, the mysterious bakery cookie.
Right. The challenge was simple enough on the surface.
Describe the cookie for us.
Okay, so imagine a large, pretty enticing bakery-style cookie, with chocolate chunks, maybe some colorful candies on top.
Sounds good. And the question?
How many carbs in this cookie? Simple as that.
Okay. So what happened? Did they all nail it?
Well, what's interesting is what almost all the models immediately did similarly.
Which was?
They were all pretty quick to acknowledge the inherent difficulty, giving a precise carb count just from an image alone.
Right. They flagged the same unknowns. Exact size, weight, specific ingredients, recipe variations. Makes sense.
And they mostly suggested checking nutritional labels or known recipes for accuracy.
But then they did try to give an estimated range anyway.
They did, and that's where the real shocker came in. The disparity in those initial carb ranges was just vast.
How vast are we talking for just one cookie?
We saw estimates swing from a surprisingly low, like 7 grams, all the way up to 65 grams.
Wow, 7 to 65. That's not even close to a consensus.
Not at all. ChatGPT estimated 55 to 65 grams, which was quite high for a starting guess.
Okay.
Claude gave a range of 30 to 60 plus grams.
Still pretty wide.
Gemini was notably cautious. It basically said it was impossible to determine ingredients or proportions just by looking. Didn't give a range initially.
Interesting approach. What about the others?
Grok and Perplexity started surprisingly low. Grok was like 15, 25 grams, then maybe 20, 30 after web search. Perplexity started at 722 grams.
That's incredibly low for a big bakery cookie.
Right. Though Perplexity did acknowledge it could be up to 65 grams for larger or richer ones.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? I mean, these wildly different estimates.
It really underscores the unreliability of purely visual carb counting by AI right now.
Yeah, an estimate differing by 30 or 40 grams, that could lead to wildly inaccurate insulin dosing.
And significant glucose fluctuations, which is critical for someone managing blood sugar.
Absolutely critical. Okay, so that huge range for the carbs. How did they handle the next step?
The really tricky part. Insulin dosing?
Right. Scenario 2 is about bolusing for that cookie, so taking the insulin for the carb.
We gave him a consistent factor, a 1 to 18 insulin to carb ratio, or ICR.
And the question was direct. What insulin dose should I give for it?
This is where things got really interesting, revealing a kind of deep philosophical split among the models.
But first, were there common warnings? Did they all say, be careful?
Oh, absolutely. Every single model, whether it gave a dose number or not, stressed the critical importance of consulting a healthcare provider.
Standard disclaimer.
Right, and monitoring blood glucose closely. They also, quite correctly, highlighted that a dose depends on way more than just carbs.
Like current blood sugar, activity, fat, protein, all that stuff.
Exactly. But then came the split.
Okay, what was the divide?
So on one side, you had models like ChatGPT, Copilot, Grok, and Perplexity.
Yeah.
They did provide a dose recommendation calculated based on their own carb estimates.
Even with those shaky estimates.
Yep. But then they immediately followed up with strong disclaimers, saying it wasn't medical advice and you need to talk to a doctor.
Okay, so they gave a number but covered themselves legally, basically.
Pretty much. But then you had the other side. Claude and Gemini.
What did they do?
This is really important for listeners to understand. Claude firmly stated it could not provide specific medical advice.
Hmm.
Full stop.
Just refused.
Flat out refused. And Gemini went even further. Gemini unequivocally stated it cannot provide medical advice or calculate insulin dosages. And it added that doing so would be, quote, practicing medicine without a license, and it is incredibly dangerous.
Wow. That's a very strong stance. Like a digital Hippocratic oath first, do no harm.
Exactly. Some models chose to potentially do no harm by simply refusing, even if it feels less helpful in the moment.
And that difference is huge for the user, right? Because even with disclaimers, seeing a number.
It can easily be misinterpreted or relied upon, especially if someone's feeling overwhelmed or unsure.
Yeah, so Claude and Gemini's outright refusal, while maybe frustrating if you just want an answer, really prioritizes patient safety.
It underscores that insulin dosing is a complex medical decision that AI, frankly, is just not qualified to make right now.
A really crucial distinction. Okay, so visual estimates were all over the place. What about adding more data? Did that help?
That was scenario 3. We gave them a key piece of information.
What was it?
The cookie weighs 105 grams, a specific weight.
Ah, okay. So taking out some of the guesswork.
Precisely. And all the models immediately recognized this as very helpful. They agreed it would lead to a much more accurate estimate.
So a key takeaway right there. The more data you provide, the better the AI generally performs.
Definitely. Garbage in, garbage out, or maybe better data in, better guess out.
Something like that. So did the estimates get better? And did they agree more?
The refined estimates were indeed narrower, yes, but differences definitely persisted.
Still no perfect agreement, even with the weight.
Nope. We saw ranges, but they were tighter. ChatGPT landed around 58 grams.
Okay.
Copilot gave a higher range, 63 to 74 grams. Gemini was similar, around 58 to 68 grams.
What about Grok?
Grok estimated about 63 grams. Though, interestingly, it initially made a mistake.
Oh, what kind of mistake?
It kind of forgot the 1:18 ratio we'd given it earlier and used a generic 1:15 for its dose calculation.
Huh. So context retention can still be an issue sometimes.
It seems so, at least in some situations. It did correct itself when we pointed it out, though.
Okay. And perplexity, you mentioned it was interesting earlier.
Yeah, perplexity was fascinating here. It gave the highest estimate, 68.25 grams.
Highest again.
But the unique thing was why. It explicitly cited multiple external sources' actual UK bakery data to support its calculation.
Whoa, okay. So it's not just guessing based on the image, it's pulling in real-world nutritional databases.
Exactly. That ability seems very promising for the future.
That is interesting. But what about the dosing? Did adding the weight change their minds about giving advice?
Not really. The core philosophical divide remained exactly the same.
So ChatGPT, Copilot, Grok, Perplexity still gave dose numbers with warnings.
Correct. And Claude still refused, advising conservative estimates and checking blood sugar frequently.
And Gemini.
Gemini did the calculation based on the new carb estimate, sort of showing its work, but emphatically refused to tell you to take this dose, citing safety.
Okay, so the implication for you, the listener, is clear. More data like weight significantly narrows the carb estimates, making them more potentially useful.
Right. And that perplexity approach of pulling real-world data is definitely something to watch.
But the safety message regarding AI telling you how much insulin to take.
It stands absolutely firm. Don't rely on it for that.
Got it. Okay, so from a single, albeit tricky cookie, where did we go next?
We ramped up the complexity. Scenario 4, the dessert bowl.
Ooh, sounds decadent. What was in it?
The image showed vanilla ice cream, topped with some kind of crumbled cake, or maybe biscuits.
Okay, a mixed dessert, more components, harder to judge visually.
Exactly. And the question was the same. Can you estimate the carbs?
How do they handle this one?
Well, again, they all correctly identified the main components, ice cream, cake, biscuit, crumble, and they all acknowledged portion size variability.
And they all gave ranges.
Yes, but again, these ranges were pretty wide, really underscoring the challenge of these mixed dishes.
Give us some examples.
Okay, ChatGPT estimated 35 to 50 grams. Claude suggested 35 to 65 grams, and even tried to break it down by component.
That's helpful.
Copilot was in the 45 to 65 gram range. But then you had Gemini.
Let me guess, different.
Very different. A much higher and broader range, 70 to 110 grams.
70 to 110. Wow, why so high?
It provided detailed reasoning. It noted that, quote, dry cake or biscuit crumbles can be quite carb dense, and also pointed out that desserts like this are often high in added sugars.
That makes sense, actually. What about grok?
Grok was on the complete opposite end. It offered the lowest estimate, just 20 to 30 grams caveated with for a small bowl.
20 to 30 versus 70 to 110. That's an enormous gap for the same picture.
It really is. Yeah, Perplexity was around 40 grams and even calculated a dose again.
The vast differences here, I mean, from Grok's lowball to Gemini's much higher number, it really highlights how subjective visual estimation is for complex foods.
And how prone to significant error it can be.
Yeah, if you relied on Grok's 20-gram estimate for what might actually be Gemini's 90-gram reality.
You could end up with substantial post-meal hyperglycemia, high blood sugar.
Definitely. Gemini's reasoning for its higher estimate seems maybe more realistic for a rich dessert like that, even if the range is wide.
It certainly feels more cautious from a safety perspective.
Okay, so cookies, dessert bowls. What was the final challenge?
Our final scenario, number 5, was the main meal. A full plate this
All
time.
right, what was on the plate?
Looked like pan-seared salmon, a scoop of creamy potato salad, some cooked greens, and there was also a drink in the picture.
Okay, a fairly standard meal. The question,
Suggest a carb amount for this meal.
how did the AIs do with recognizing the different components?
Pretty well, mostly. They all correctly identified the potato salad as the main carb source.
Right, potatoes.
And they correctly identified the salmon and greens as being low or no carb. And again, acknowledge portion size matters.
Yeah.
They all offered a carb range.
Okay, sounds reasonable so far, but you said mostly. Was there a catch?
There was a big one, but first, something interesting ChatGPT did.
What was that?
It was quite comprehensive. It uniquely accounted for the drink in its estimate.
Oh, it noticed the drink.
Yeah, and gave a range like 60 to 65 grams with juice, or maybe 30 to 35 grams without it. That showed pretty strong visual analysis, looking at the whole picture.
Impressive detail. Okay, but what was the catch? The big issue?
It came from Claude. This is where it gets truly concerning, actually.
Uh-oh. What happened?
Claude misidentified the main protein source.
It didn't see the salmon.
It saw something, but it thought the salmon was, and I quote, a slice of quiche or savory tart.
Quiche instead of salmon. That's
Yeah.
why not even close visually, usually.
Not really. And based on that misidentification, it estimated 37 to 60 grams for the meal.
That's a huge problem. Quiche, with its pastry crust, has a very different carb profile than a piece of salmon.
Exactly.
Mhm.
While the carb estimates for this meal were generally lower and maybe a bit more consistent across the other models, Claude's misidentification is a really serious warning sign,
It absolutely is. If an AI messes up identifying a basic food item like that,
even with good intentions.
right, the resulting carb estimate could be dangerously inaccurate. It completely throws off the calculation.
It really reinforces the need for you, the user, to always verify what the AI thinks it sees against what you know is actually on your plate. Don't just trust its identification blindly.
A critical safety check. Wow. Okay, so we've gone through cookies, desserts, meals, seen huge ranges, dosing refusals, even misidentifications.
It's been quite a ride through the current state of AI carb counting.
So let's try to distill this. What are the biggest overall takeaways for you, our listener, from this whole deep dive?
Okay, I think the first and honestly the most crucial takeaway is this. AI is not a substitute for a medical professional, period.
Exactly. We saw models like Claude and Gemini explicitly refuse to give insulin dosing advice, and for very good reason.
Your insulin dose is influenced by just far too many personal and dynamic factors. Your current blood sugar, your activity level, illness, stress, the timing of the meal.
Things an AI looking at a picture simply cannot know.
Right, so always consult your healthcare team for dosing decisions.
Okay, takeaway number 1. Talk to your doctor, not just the AI. What's next?
Second, visual carb counting, just by looking at a picture, is inherently challenging, even for sophisticated AI.
We saw that clearly. Without specific recipe details or exact weights, AI provides estimates with pretty significant ranges.
Especially for complex, mixed dishes like that dessert bowl, or even the main meal.
Right. Takeaway 3 seems related to that.
More data equals better estimates. It seems obvious, but the experiment proved it.
When we added the weight of the cookie?
The accuracy improved, the estimates narrowed significantly.
So combining AI's analytical power with concrete user input, like actually weighing your food, is far more effective than relying on the visual guess alone.
Definitely. Which leads to takeaway number 4. AI can misinterpret images.
Yeah, the salmon quiche incident, that was a stark reminder.
AI models are not infallible. Their visual recognition isn't perfect.
So you absolutely have to double check what the AI sees versus what you know is on your plate. Treat its identification as a suggestion, not gospel.
Couldn't agree more. Fifth takeaway.
There's significant variability among the different models.
Hugely different. They have different training data, different algorithms, and, as we saw, very different safety protocols built in.
Which leads to wildly different carb estimates and approaches to things like dosing advice.
And we saw that promising feature in Perplexity, its ability to pull in external, citable nutritional data. That might be a key differentiator going forward.
Yeah, that integration seems really valuable, potentially. Okay, any other major takeaways?
Just one more, maybe. Some models are showing growing sophistication in understanding the nuances beyond just carbs,
Like what?
like highlighting that high fat and high sugar content in a meal can delay glucose spikes.
Ah, the pizza effect. Sort of.
Exactly. And that might require adjusted insulin strategies like extended boluses, which some models actually mentioned. That shows a deeper level of understanding is starting to emerge.
Okay, that's a good summary. So the bottom line here, where does this leave us?
Well, the bottom line is that AI for carb counting holds, I think, immense potential for the future.
You can see it, right? As models get smarter at visual recognition, as they integrate these vast nutritional databases like Perplexity did.
The potential is definitely there. However,
There's always a however.
for now, based on this experiment, they are best used as a supplementary tool.
Something to help you generate an initial estimate, maybe, a starting point.
Exactly. But not as a definitive guide, especially not for insulin dosing.
The experiment really shows they often about as effective at visual carb counting as, well, as we humans are.
Which is to say, often not very reliable on its own. We all know how tricky visual estimation can be.
So true. Okay, so actionable advice for you, the listener, based on all this.
Number one, prioritize real-world data whenever possible. Nutrition labels, accurate recipes, using a food scale. That's still the gold standard.
Absolutely. The AI can't replace a food scale, basically.
Not yet, anyway. Second, consult your healthcare team for personalized advice on carb counting and insulin dosing.
Don't outsource your medical decisions to an app.
Please don't.
No.
And third, meticulously monitor your blood glucose. That's how you learn, how you refine your own carb counting skills, and see how different foods truly affect you.
Use that data to get better over time.
Exactly.
Okay, so the future of diabetes management with AI. It's exciting. The potential is there.
It really is. But the current reality requires caution.
So the final thought. Stay safe, stay healthy, and for your own well-being when using these tools.
Always double check.
Mhm.
Your health depends on it.